it's your company and for you to, whoever's working with you to be able to have access to an ecosystem, which includes a website and email and things like that. So today, again, my name is Ginger Birkenbiel. I'm so glad you're here because there's so many other places you could be. And it's for Pete's sake, it's 5:39 on a Wednesday night and it's raining outside. So, it's like I'm glad I'm inside, but you could have gone to any workshop because there's got to be hundreds of them across the country now, but you chose this one. So I'm very grateful for that. This workshop, establish a professional domain, website, and email for your business. It's really going to focus on selecting a domain for your website using Google Domains, which is a really amazing platform. It's way better than Network Solutions and 10 times better than GoDaddy. And it's going to be useful and relevant really for people who have not really registered their custom domain name. Now, that doesn't mean you might already have a domain name for a company that's live right now, but you might also be thinking about another company or another product or service that you're thinking about launching or testing out. Or maybe you have some ideas in your head that you haven't really brought to fruition yet. This is a great workshop because you're going to be able to find the platform to register the domain for even a company that you haven't even started yet, Again, my name is Ginger Birkenbuell. I own Burt Creative, the Honest Field Guide podcast, a band called Utah Carol, which is a country band that we launched several years ago, and a nonprofit called Journey of Gratitude, as well as a publishing company called Burt Digital. And I've done all this with all these different companies, and I've put everything online and secured my digital real estate, my digital footprint using a lot of Google tools. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind, that these are tools for you to use to make money and to build a business and to build not only financial wealth, but generational wealth for you and your family. So when you invent something really cool, you want to keep it forever. And, your ancestors can learn about it and say, wow, my great aunt had a company called Burt Creative and she's, look at all this cool stuff. Anyway, so I want to encourage you to say hello in the chat. What I really loved about yesterday's workshop was that everybody said hello in the chat. They said they shared their email addresses or their websites. They let people know what their LinkedIn profiles are. I highly, highly, highly encourage you, if you don't have a LinkedIn profile, please get one, because right now LinkedIn is free. There's no advertising, hardly any advertising on LinkedIn, and their purpose is not focused on selling ads. LinkedIn's purpose is focused on collecting people and getting to 1 billion users on their platform. So right now, until they get to 1 billion users, you're not going to be faced with what you're dealing with on Instagram or TikTok, which is a bunch of incredible advertising. You're probably getting like 5, 6 ads every 3 posts at this point on Instagram. It's kind of challenging, but LinkedIn is open and free right now. You don't have to pay to be there. So if you're going to be blowing your business up or your personal brand up, then now would be the time to tap into LinkedIn for that. I also shared in the chat links to Google Career Certificates. So Google Career Certificates, if you're 16 years, you're eligible to earn a Google Career Certificate. You don't have to have a high school diploma. You don't have to have a college degree. These career certificates allow you to upskill yourself if you already have a job. If you own a company, you can encourage your employees to earn these certificates so they can have more skill, which means that they'll be a better employee for you, but you're also investing in their professional development. And you can get things like project management, UX design. I actually have a certificate in the marketing certificate program with Google. It's a really intensive program to help you become a better marketer. And there's all different kinds of programs available. I encourage it. It's really inexpensive. And if you're a company, you can apply to get a grant, which means that everybody that works for you can get upskilled for free with Google Career Certificates. And the other benefit is that there's other companies that when they know that you have a Google Career Certificate, you'll be eligible to apply for jobs in their network, because there's other companies that are pooled together in the Google Career Certificate network. So again, 16 and up, no high school diploma required, don't have to go to college. It's really absolutely an amazing opportunity as far as I'm concerned. Okay. So let's get going. I already see a question. If you could hold your questions to the end, would be great, because I'm gonna, we'll kind of blaze through this a little bit. Hopefully this isn't a brand new language for you. Some people, this might be a new language, or might be terms you've never heard of before. So I'll do my best. You might have to later go to Google and, type some things in and ask questions on Google to get more clarification. I do think that Catherine Jackson, she's going to be sharing this on Far South's YouTube channel. So when it's on the YouTube channel, you'll be able to, refer back to it and get some more lessons. I do encourage you though to go to Google Career Certificates because this program doesn't issue a certificate, but Google Career Certificates do, which means you'll be able to put that certificate on your LinkedIn profile, right? Okay, so Google Digital Coaches, by the way, is part of the Grow with Google platform, and there's coaches all over the country. If you want to go to Google digitalcoaches.com, you can sign up for other classes with other coaches in other states. So that's kind of interesting. Everybody has a different approach to this content. Our social media handles our Digital Coaches program, and actually, I think tomorrow, if you go to googledigitalcoaches.com and if you go to any of the coaches' profiles, definitely go to mine. We are actually hosting a summit. I believe it's actually tomorrow in celebration of Black History Month. And this, of course, workshop here is in celebration of Black History Month. But there's a summit happening. There's going to be speakers from all over the country. There's going to be very high profile leaders from Google talking about the things that they're doing. Not only for their Black employees, but what they're doing to send money and opportunity back to nonprofits and Black businesses in the United States. I highly encourage you to go to this summit. It's completely free. And it's going to be very interesting, to get to know some other entrepreneurs across the country. And again, it's Black History Month, so it's really going to be a focus on, Blackness, which is great. We need more focus on Blackness and Black business. Okay. This is my LinkedIn profile. Please connect with me here. Just type my name in LinkedIn and I should come up pretty quickly because there's no other Ginger Birkenbuehls out there as far as I know. Nobody wants to steal the last name Birkenbuehl because it's a really tough last name. All right. Okay. So before I dig into the tactics, what questions does anyone have for me? Put them in the chat. And I want to just say hello to Monica and Monique, Deborah, Merrill, June, and welcome back, Kenneth. That's all I can see right now. All right, I think that was my 7 seconds. I like to leave 7 seconds for people to process. Okay, so let's start by exploring why your business should actually establish a professional URL or domain name. Yes, you can transfer from GoDaddy. Even if you're in your earliest stages of building your business, and I wanted to answer that question real quick before I get going. If you are even in the early stages of building your business, or you're thinking of it as a side hustle or a passion project, some people like to call it a passion project, getting a domain name gives your business credibility online. If you already have a domain, you know what that means. That means you own something. You actually have real estate online, like a piece of property on a plot in a city on the street. You actually have a piece of code on the internet, which is something that can, get you all over the world, not just local, but this is a global opportunity having a website. So, but throughout this workshop, we're really going to use a made up website to, share the example. And the example is going to be stagesbakery.com. So just keep that in mind. It's not real. But it's really the best way for me to explain some of this content. All right. So a domain name allows you to create a professional email address, further establishing your business's credibility. That's what a domain name allows you to do. So, for example, I have several domains. Burke Creative is one of them, and Burke Design is another one. I used to have an email, jinja@burkedesign.com, which I deprecated because unfortunately it got spammed to death, so I don't use it anymore. But that's what a professional email is, jinja@burkedesign.com. It's a small detail, but a professional email address indicates a level of professionalism and permanence to potential customers. I also have an email that I use, which has a name at gmail.com. I actually use my gmail.com address as an admin. I use it to, sign into my social media channels. I use it to log into my YouTube channel. So I have sort of a back end email, and you can do that as well. Some people don't really like to do that, having a single point of entry. Some people like me, I'm just like, look, I cannot have 5,000 different email addresses connected to one company. I need one email that I can use for all of my back-end information. But it's really up to you, however you want to manage this. In today's workshop, we're going to explore a couple topics in more detail. We are going to talk a little bit about what is a domain name, how to choose a domain name for your business, registering your domain on Google Domains, which is really, really cheap and really, really easy and very intuitive and very beautiful. how to build a no-cost website with Google Sites. And we're going to talk about how to set up a professional email address with your new domain name. So we'll wrap this up by recapping some points, and I'll give you some resources. I've already shared a couple resources already. So if you have to, jump off or leave or something like that, then that's totally fine. I hopefully will get you as much as you can in the beginning. So what exactly is a domain name? I don't know if anybody knows the difference between a domain and a URL, but that's what we're going to talk about right now because they are kind of confusing. So a domain name is the name of your website, and you can think google.com or burtcreative.com or stagesbakery.com, but you don't have to have a website to have a domain. So some people, they invest in multiple they invest in multiple domain names, and they basically buy these domain names and they sell them at a profit. These people, like for example, back in the day, someone bought water.com and water.org before anybody knew any better. And then when the thing, when it started blowing up and people started realizing how valuable websites were, somebody said, oh, I'd love to buy your water.org, domain. And that person's like, sure, I'll sell it to you for $2 million. And they made, $2 million profit. So, that's what a domain is. You don't have to have a website. You could just park the domain and just hold on to it for as long as you want, right? When you establish and register a domain name for your business, you've carved out the right to use that name online, and you've prevented others from taking it. That's what it means. And that's what I said earlier about having real estate. It's like having the deed to your property, right? So you have to really be careful when you register for a domain to make sure you keep all the registration information in order so that someone doesn't actually, take your name. So registering a domain is the first step to having an online presence. And since it's a web address, which is a URL, and the name of a website, the terms may seem interchangeable, but they're very distinctive. So domain name, website, and URL really do have three distinct meanings. And it's important to understand this, not only for now, but for the future, so you know what you're doing. So the domain name is the name of the website, the part that you see after the www, and sometimes you don't even see www anymore, right? And a professional email address, it's what comes after the @ symbol, right? So a website is a collection of content, often made up of multiple web pages that are grouped together. This is separate from the domain name. So, but you can associate the two if you want, because this gets into a little minutia, but it's still important to know the difference. So you would type in the domain name to access the website content, right? So like content, what is the content? Web pages, videos, other things that make your website live on a computer, which is then called a server. And this server is provided by companies that are called hosting providers. GoDaddy is a hosting service and a registrar, so they can sell you a domain name, and they can also host your website, and they can provide you an email address through your domain on their server, right? That's what they have. They have a full package. So third, a URL is the web address that leads to a specific page on a website. So if you register a domain name, it'll be part of the URL. And oftentimes the homepage URL matches the domain name, but each page within the site has its own URL. So you can kind of think of these elements like a store. The domain name is a store name, right? Macy's.com. The URL is the address. Macy's.com is a domain name. The URL is Macy's.com, which is like the actual address, and the website is the store itself filled with the products, and that is what that means. So for example, in Macy's.com, you'll have Macy's.com/lipstick or Macy's.com/lucky brand, right? Things like that. Or you'll have Macy's.com/XY2235788-577235211, which is the address to links directly to a pair of jeans. So if that makes sense, hopefully it does make sense. It sounds more complicated when I speak it out loud, but when you not think too deeply about it, it actually does lay up like dominoes. Okay, so it's never ever too soon nor too late for a small business, a lone entrepreneur to plan their digital presence, to register a domain name. It's never too soon to do that, because this way you protect your intellectual property. So if you come up with a name for a company or a name of a product or a name of whatever the heck it is you're doing, and you put it out there in the open, in the air, and you become successful, and you haven't registered your domain name, and you've already gotten success, I guarantee you someone is going to say, wow, that company's making $1 million. I'm going to take that domain name because I noticed they didn't register it, and then they're going to have it, and you're going to then want to go get it, and you're going to say, oh my gosh, why didn't I do that first? So this is something I want you to think about. So what you're really doing is you're staking out a claim to your business name online, and that way you can use it whenever you want. So you always want to get your domain name first before you speak out loud that you're doing something. I think I read somewhere recently, wealth moves in silence. So just kind of lay low a little bit before you start spreading out your, the information. Okay, so having a domain name is important for showing up in search results. When customers search online, your domain and website can show up. So if you already have a website, you'll know what I mean, because if you type in your website, it's already going to show up, right? Brand building, it controls how your brand shows up online. We talked about professional and personal branding yesterday. With a domain, this is how your business shows up on the web, right? It's professional. People expect to see a domain. If you don't have a domain, they're like, this person's not really in business, right? So here's another way to look at it too. Some people might park their domain. They might have their .com, but then they use their website primarily on YouTube. So some people just have a YouTube channel, and that's actually their main website, but they've still gotten their domain and they've parked it because they don't want anybody else to use it, right? So keep that in mind. And when they register a domain, you can often access the tools that come with the registration. So whoever said they have a GoDaddy, I'm sure there's a lot of things available for you to use because you have a domain hosted on GoDaddy. So you've got a name, and you're thinking to yourself, okay, you'd like to register it for your business, but how do you actually choose a good domain name? How do you do that? So for most businesses, the starting point is the business name. I just gave a half an hour coaching call this past week to a woman who said, I need a website, and I need a logo, and I need XYZ. And it sounded really great. And I was like, okay, let me first back up a little bit and talk to you a little bit about the name and your domain. And so my suggestion was, have you ever, searched for your domain name online before you, put all of your effort into creating a logo and materials and a website? And she said, I actually never did that. I'm like, well, you really do need to, search for your name to make sure that nobody else has it already before you put all your money into this new thing. The second thing is, have you ever spoken the name out loud? Is it easy to say? Because it's not just about, what it looks like. It's also about how does it roll off your mouth when you're speaking it out loud. Because if nobody can say it, it's going to be really hard for people to remember when they're typing it on the internet. Okay. But anyway, but don't let it stop you when I'm giving all these ideas about how to try to be perfect, because perfect is the killer of progress is always, 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 my warning. Don't try to be perfect. But if you do have a name that you really love and you type it in Google to see if somebody else has a domain, for example, if you type in xyz.com and you're like, shoot, somebody else has it, don't despair. Come up with some versions of this name if you really don't decide that you don't want to change it, right? Just try to figure out, maybe you can change the ending. You doesn't have to be a .com. Maybe it can be a .net, maybe it could be a .org, something like that, or it could be a completely different name, things like that. I usually like to avoid hyphens, and I definitely avoid spellings of words that look like mistakes or that are phonetically pronounced, because sometimes it's very confusing for people to remember that. And also keep in mind that there are people that are neurodivergent and they hear things differently, they see things differently, they speak differently. Some people can't hear at all. So always keep in mind, depending on the audience you're trying to reach, how do you reach the most amount of people as possible? All right, so when it comes to coming up with a name, you always want to keep it short and simple. Always want to keep it short and simple, and try to use keywords in your name. So back in the day when my company was called Burke Design, I realized after maybe 5 years in business that word design was too limiting, because people were like, what kind of a designer are you? And I'm like, well, I'm not even a designer anymore. So I actually changed my name to Burke Creative, which ended up being a much, much better solution for where I am and where I was at the time in the journey of my business. And it's still working even today. But think about keywords that make sense. If you're a candy shop, can you put the word candy in there? If you're an accountant, can you put the word accounting, right? Or CPA? Things like that. If you are a lawyer, can you put the word legal? I mean, think of words that reflect your brand, your service, or your industry. And you can always think about alternative endings. And sometimes when it comes to alternative endings, sometimes you just get them all. So I have burkecreative.com, burkecreative.org, burkecreative.net, and I have some other Burke Creatives as well. So you might want to do that depending on how far you want to go with your business or how far you think you're going to go. I always like to plan for success, so I try to buy the most that money can buy, until I can't buy it anymore for the thing that I'm trying to achieve. All right. So again, I want to just mention keeping it short. We just want to stay away from really, really long URL domain names. And we also want to avoid, you don't need to add an LLC or a corp, unless you absolutely have to. It doesn't add credibility. It doesn't make you look better. It doesn't make you look like you're more in business. There's a lot of other things that make you look real than adding LLC and corp, because sometimes those letters get really confusing for some people. So try not to be overly creative. The other thing is there is a limit to how long of a URL you can have. Like 253 characters is the most you can have for a URL name, right? And you want people to remember your name. You want people to remember it. So keep it simple. Don't make it complicated. Don't make it super uncommon, because then that's a stumbling block for people that are trying to process what they're looking at, right? Always avoid hyphens and things like that. So again, I mentioned earlier, one of the things I've always regretted, actually, so I have a band called Utah Carol. No one ever knows what I'm saying when I say it. And I remember having a huge fight with my husband about this. I'm like, I don't think I can say this word. And he's like, it's really cool, though I want it. So we went for it, and I still love the name of the band, but I do know that it's a very challenging name for people to remember, because they're like, say that again? How do you spell it? What are you saying? And it's kind of been a barrier in some ways, in terms of the searchability and discoverability of our band online. Okay, so just think about that. Say it out loud, speak it. And you know what? Ask someone else to say it too. Ask someone else that speaks a second language to say whatever the name is that you're trying to come up with for your company. So I mentioned keywords before. These are relevant words that help people recognize you in a search and recognize what you do at a glance. These are words or phrases that help with search queries on Google and other search engines. So if you're building a brand for like Stages Bakery, that company I told you about before, the fake company, you might want to say stagesbakery.com. That actually helps. People know right away they were talking about a bakery, right? Including your location might be an option as well. Stages Bakery Chicago, if you can't get Stages Bakery, for example, right? So there's things like that can help you get more discovered, but also help to differentiate yourself from another competitor that also might be a bakery, things like that. So when you're creating the name, just make sure also that you're not using an existing brand name, because if you are, and you put yourself out there, someone can shut you down because they have the right to do so, because they have a trademark name. So that's why it's very important when you're coming up with the name of your company, when you're starting to secure a domain, that you do some diligence and look online to say, oh, you know what, let me see if this name is actually available. Just really make a couple little extra steps. And just make sure that you do that. Okay, so once you find the domain name you want, it's time to make it yours by registering it, and that's really kind of the fun part. So what does it mean to register your domain name? So all right, so you want to think about a long-established candy shop named Sally's in downtown, and one day a new candy ice cream shop opens up next door with the same name, right? That says Sally's. So maybe the two of them are going to have to work it out themselves as to who's going to be able to own the name or whatever. But the main thing is that, again, you want to take a look at your name and if it's available. So I'm going to put this in the chat. One of the ways you can look up the name is by going to the Internet Corporation for Signed Names and Numbers. And this is the organization that manages domain names so that there's no confusion about where you'll end up. And I'm just going to put this in the chat if you want to learn more about this. Okay. So domain registrars are accredited by this organization, the Internet Corporation for Signed Names and Numbers. And I misspoke earlier. This is not the place you check if the name's available, but this is the place that registers all the domain names for all of the people that are looking to issue domain names like GoDaddy and Google Domains. So they're in charge. It's one organization that is responsible to ensure that there's no duplicates, because there actually can't be a duplicate. There can't be two different URLs for Burke Creative. There can only be one. There can only be burkecreative.com or burkecreative.net or burkecreative.org or burkecreative.day or burkecreative.bar. There can't be two addresses. There's only one place that it goes, and that's this company that issues these things, and they manage all the domain names, so there's never confusion where you'll end up when you type in the name of a site, unless of course it gets hacked, which is a whole different conversation. All right, so domain registrars like GoDaddy, they're accredited by this organization. Everyone that sells domains is not accredited though by ICANN. So you have to be very, very careful when you buy a domain to make sure that they're accredited and they're actually a registrar. They have to be a registrar. Read the fine print. Okay. Anyway, this is not a permanent purchase when you buy a domain name. You usually have to renew 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. I don't even know how many years you can register at once. Like I'm just trying to think, a company like Coca-Cola or Nike, can they register? Can they do registration in perpetuity? I don't think they can. I do know that really large companies, they have, well, they should anyway. I don't know if they do. There's some companies that have not invested in this, but really large companies have high IT departments that are fully responsible for doing this work to make sure that the domains never expire. Because can you imagine what would happen if the person that worked in the IT department, Coca-Cola, let the registration for Coke.com expire and somebody else picked up that Coke.com? Can you imagine the chaos that would ensue? And that person would lose their job overnight. Okay, so anyway, once you've registered the domain name with, Google Domains, hopefully, which is way better than GoDaddy, I'll just be honest, and it's not because I'm running this class, it's because I've registered a domain in multiple places, and Google is really the coolest, best, simplest place to do it. It goes into ICANN Central Registry. Google Domain, of course, is a registrar, and the process to get a domain is very easy. It's so like just boom, boom, boom. If you want to go there right now, if you want to go to Google Domains right now and log into Google Domains with your business Gmail account or your workspace account, you can actually start doing this right now. Like you don't even need me to help you go through this because it's so easy. You can check it out. Let me know if you've done it. Put in the chat that you've actually done that. I would love to know. So as far as Google Domains is concerned, some of the features are domain forwarding. So if you don't have a website, your domain forwarding allows you to send customers to your online store or your social media page, which is really cool. There's no cost for two-factor authentication. I hope that a lot of your stuff is on two-factor authentication that keeps everything secure, your social media, it keeps your domain name secure, but it's included with Google, okay? And here's another added value, which is really important because a lot of these registrars, they charge you extra for this. And I will tell you right now, if you registered your domain with GoDaddy, you either pay for privacy, which means no one will know who registered your domain, or you don't pay for privacy, means that all the information that you put in GoDaddy ends up on Whois, which is the public place to show who owns every single domain in the world. Addresses, phone numbers, email addresses, first and last name, it's all in there unless you pay for it to be private. And they charge you monthly for privacy, but not Google Domains. It's included in your registration. Google Domains keeps your information private and they do not charge you extra for it. This is so important. People did not know back in the 80s. They did not know. They put all their honest information in there, including their home addresses when they register for these domains. And now all their information is on Whois. If you wonder why you get spam and stuff in the mail, it's partly because of this. I mean, people think it's your phone number, but no, it's because people registered domains and like it wasn't private. So now it is at Google Domains. So anyway, this is really important because it prevents spam. It really prevents spam. So registering with domains also connects you to other tools seamlessly. So if you get a domain, you also, well, first of all, if you get a Gmail account, you automatically get a free website with Google. It's called Google Sites. I think I told you that yesterday. But if you have a Gmail, you have Google Sites, you get a domain, you can have your website set up on Google Domains, and it's very, very seamless. It also integrates with analytics, Search Console, which is a place that helps you ensure that your website's not hacked. Pricing is very clear. It's very predictable. If I have time at the end of this, I'm going to show you what my Google Domains list looks like. It's so easy. Prices will not automatically increase in subsequent years, and there are no hidden fees. That's the thing that drives me nuts about some of these domain places. They'll be like, you get a domain, and that, you're like, oh yeah, it'll cost you $7 a year. Then you sign up and they're like, oh, $7 a year, but you have to pay this for this. This is extra for that. This is extra for that. This is extra for that. Next thing you know, you're not $7 a year anymore. You're more like $25 a year. And you're just like, wait a minute. This was like a bait and switch. It was $7 a minute ago. All right. So anyway, so let's look at how to get started with Google Domains. If you haven't already gone there, please do on your laptop or your mobile device. Do a search for your domain name that you've chosen. How about this? If you have a domain, great. but come up with another domain that you don't have and see what comes and see if it's available. That's really what I like to do before I get attracted and desperate to launch something new. I always see if the domain is available first. Always. That's a step you cannot miss when you're an entrepreneur. So you want to go to domains.google.com and type in the domain and then click get it and see what happens. It's so easy, so easy, so easy. You'll be brought to a page that tells you whether the name is available. Very simple. It also will give you some insights, which I love. Like, so here's the thing about Google. All the products that Google runs, they're all backed by automation, otherwise known as artificial intelligence, things like that. So this is another site. This is another tool that Google has where they're asking you questions like, okay, this might be a little too long. You want to think about this? Is it easy to spell and pronounce? They're going to walk you through some things, and that's really AI that's sort of helping you get through the process to make it easier for you to make decisions, right? So you can choose to make changes based on the insights that they give you, or you can stick with what you've chosen. It's really up to you. Remember, I would take the insights into consideration because Google has a lot of data that they've crunched to let you know of the billions of people out there. We've learned that this really doesn't work. I mean, believe it when they say it doesn't work, even if you have you're like, I love it. Take it into consideration, but do keep your own counsel. Go with what you think is right and go with your gut, right? You're also going to get an option to see alternative endings. Remember earlier I mentioned, it's important to me to secure my intellectual property. So even though .com is sort of like the grand gold standard of, web addresses, I do also have burtcreative.net and I have burtcreative.org because I don't want anybody starting a new company with my name. I just don't, not on the top 3 standard domains, because those are the top. The top are .com, .org, and then .net, right? And even if you're not a nonprofit organization, you want somebody else to have a nonprofit with your company name. That's so confusing. People will be confused. So once you've decided on the name, you just add to your shopping cart by clicking the cart icon and you're in. That's it. And then you put your credit card in there and you're done. So you'll see the price and the terms in plain English, along with options for purchase. It's really easy. You might upgrade to include a Google Workspace, which is what you'll get if you want, if you have some employees and you want them to have their own custom email address with your domain. Workspace allows you to do things like that. So you can have, Susie at burtcreative.com or Julie at burtcreative.com or Dexter Dallas, Dexter at burtcreative.com, Trace at burtcreative.com, that kind of thing. That's what you can do with a Workspace account that does cost extra. That is not free. So you review your purchase, click buy, your domain name is now registered. Nobody else can get it. Nobody else can have it. It's all yours. It's your real estate. So maybe you have a domain name you registered elsewhere, and someone earlier queried about this, but you want the features that Google Domain offers. You can transfer that by clicking transfer from the page, and it'll follow the prompts and just walk through whatever it's telling you to do to transfer your domain. It should be easy. I've actually not myself transferred a domain. You want to know why? Because all my domains are with Google Domains or Network, not Network Solutions, Media Temple. So I had those there, and everything's housed there. So it's kind of simple for me. But the prompts to have you transfer with Google are pretty simple. It might be complicated on the other end. I don't know about the other end, but on Google's side, it's really, really easy. So ideally, the domain name you've chosen is available, but sometimes it's not available. Sometimes it's not. So you might find that making a very, very simple change will result in a name that is available. Very simple change. So what can you do to make a simple change? I mentioned this a little bit earlier. So you can add the city after your name if you want, right? You can add Chicago, your company, chicago.com. Potentially you could say, you could actually even think of getting a different ending, right? That's what I mentioned. Like sometimes people don't secure all 3 endings when they secure their domain authority. I would never advise that, but sometimes they don't. You might be like, you know what? I don't really care. I really want this name. Somebody else has a .com. I'm just going to take the .net and the .org. That is completely your choice if you want to be involved with confusion. Hopefully you've done a search of your name, because you do need to know how much confusion you're going to have if you decide to keep the name and let somebody have the .com and you take the .net. So just be real careful about that. But there's a lot of options available now. So if you go to Google Domains, you'll notice There are way more options in .com, .net, and .org now. There used to be just a few. Now there's like 300. There's 300. And you can actually get a little crazy. Like last year I bought, oh my gosh, I bought so many domains last year. I looked the other day, I'm like, what was I thinking? Like, I could have bought some like shoes with this money. I don't know what I was buying all these domains for. Like, who wants these? It was just, I went a little nuts because I was so excited because it was so easy that I was like, oh, I'll take this one. It was like candy in a candy shop. You know what I mean? Anyway, you can also start fresh with a brand new name. It just really depends on how you feel about what name you have. But just know that it is a process, and depending on how far you're in your journey you are, you can either get stuck and mired in despair, or you can just hurry up, make a decision, and move on, which is what I like to do. All right, so domain naming. So brainstorming. How do you brainstorm? Whiteboard, vision board, notes, speaking into your phone, saying things out loud, just all different kinds of ways to brainstorm. Sketchpad, how do you brainstorm? Does anybody have any ideas on how they brainstorm? I mean, think about how you brainstorm, and that's what you need to do when you're trying to come up with a name, right? And then once you do all the things, like if you have like 20 ideas, look at scratch out your most hated, have a second level for I kind of like these, but my favorite at the top, and then go down the list and figure out, by searching on Google Domains, which one's available. And that might actually help you hone in on figuring out what a name is. So it's really kind of that easy. So then earlier I mentioned the domain name was the first step, but you might want to, build and publish a website. That might be the next thing. Again, Google Sites is free, but when you connect it to a domain, it actually does cost. You have to actually pay for that, okay? So you might find building a website overwhelming, but it's really not. Google Sites is really easy. There's templates. You just pick the template you want, add some copy, upload some photos. You can build a website in a minute. I think for my son, Dexter, actually he did it. I just had him use his Gmail account. He built his student jazz website in like 2 minutes. He doesn't love it, but he's got a site in case someone types his name in, right? He has a site and it's published. It's not gorgeous. It's not amazing because, you get what you pay for, right? You get what you pay for, but you can always use Google Sites, and it's wonderful because it's actually cross-platform. So you can use it on your phone, your tablet, your desktop. It works really beautifully no matter what. It re-renders all the information that it's already designed to do really beautifully on the different devices. So I highly encourage you to do this, especially if you're starting up, or if you already have a company already and you're trying to test a new product or new service. You can always launch at Google Sites and test these things and see how it goes before you actually go full on and do a new website with it. That's what I love about Google Sites. You don't need to register a domain name with Google Domains to use Google Sites, but again, if you did, you can automatically connect them. So in your Google Domains account, you would click website on the left navigation, click the link in the card labeled build a new website, and you look for the link that says build website, and then it'll ask you something like, what type of website do you want to build? And from there, you have the option to select other companies that have website builder products that have partnered with Google Domains. And I would always, first of all, you're not gonna be able to use any other company that hasn't partnered with Google Domains because they have verified and vetted all the companies that are attached to their web products. So just know that everything attached to their domain and web products have been vetted and verified. But to connect a Google site, you just click the option labeled simple site powered by Google Sites and follow the prompts, and your domain name will be associated with the site that you build. And it's that simple. So you don't have to use Google Domains to use Google Sites, right? You don't even have to have a domain name to build a no-cost site. I think I mentioned that at the very beginning. As long as you have a Gmail account, you can use Google Sites, and they have a template gallery, and you just click and just upload photos and copy, write things, and it's really fun. In fact, the one cool thing about Google Sites, which is similar to slides or sheets, is you can collaborate. So you can actually build a website with anybody else that you want. You just have to share it, and they can add value, and they can maybe type the content in for you. They can add the photos, so you can collaborate by building a Google site. It's pretty cool. I don't know if you've ever tried it. If you're familiar with Sheets or Docs, things like that, where you can actually collaborate with your teammates, or you can collaborate with other people in your company, some other coworkers. You can do a lot of things together, and you can do it in real time, actually, right? So this is actually pretty self-explanatory. You just click on the text boxes to type your copy, click on boxes to upload images. The thing that you can't do on Google Sites there's no e-commerce solutions here. You'll have to you'll have to go to a different place if you want to sell something. What you can do though, if you have something to sell, is you can always have a link that says buy now, and that link can pop out to another site that has a product for you to buy. You can do that, but there's no e-commerce solutions built into these free websites because that's an entirely different process that requires cybersecurity and SSLs, all kinds of stuff. So you need to kind of look somewhere else if you actually want to have a store, if that makes sense, okay? But it'll look professional. So once you have a site, you can just share it. You can publish it right now. You can preview it. You can publish it. You can share it with someone before you publish it and say, hey, would you take a look at my site? Are there any typos? Should I change a photo? Do you like my headline? Can you read it? Is it working on your end? Things like that. And that's what will happen. And you just share it. Keep in mind, if you don't use your own domain, your site, I'm going to put it in the chat. Your URL, which we talked about earlier, is going to look like this. So it'll be site.google.com Burt Creative if you don't connect your domain to your Google site. So again, you can have a Google site for free with your Gmail account, and you can add your name to the end. It'll say site.google.com, my delicious cupcakes, and that's your website URL. Or you can get mydeliciouscupcakes.com, and that can become a website for you using Google domains. So, you just have to make a decision. Some people don't have money to get a domain right now. They can't afford $12 a year, for a domain, and that's totally fine. Okay. So I should probably just see what questions you have for me right now, anyone? It really has, Nicole. Thanks for that comment. I find it really helpful. I mean, the seamlessness of their products is great. I'm always challenged when I'm forced to use Microsoft. I mean, I love Microsoft. I'm cross-platform. That's an excellent question. I don't believe so. I don't believe they are found in Google search results without you connecting it to Google Analytics or Google Console, which you can once you get it. Although actually that's a good question because I think, okay, so first of all, if you have a Gmail account, you need a Gmail account or you need a Google account in order to access Google Analytics or Search Console. In order for Search Console or Google Analytics to work, it has to be connected to a domain that you own. So I would assume that because you are using a free website, that you may not have access to the analytics tools because you don't own a domain to attach to it. So I'm going to say no, but I'm going to have to check and come back to you on that because that's a really excellent question. I don't know. My instinct is that the answer to that is no. Because I know that I have a couple of Google sites, and when I type my name in, it does not come up. It's not associated with the domain. Okay, thanks for asking that. I'm going to find out. Yeah, .org and .com and .net matter. If you want to secure your intellectual property around your name, you don't have to use them. I said earlier, I have those endings. I have .org and .net, and I park them because I don't want anybody else to have burtcreative.org. I don't want that because Burt Creative is a brand that I have and I've established over a number of years. So I don't want anybody else to have Burt Creative on any other domain extension. Now, if somebody decides they want Burt Creative whatever the heck, some other crazy ending, then they can have that. But for the top level domain endings, I don't want anybody else to have them. So it's really up to you because it does get expensive. It gets expensive to own all these things. Shoot. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't think there's a cost associated. Once you buy the domain, you're paying for the domain, you connect it to Google Sites, and it's pretty seamless. It's pretty there. I do think you have to pay for hosting though. I think that's an extra cost. I think I'm going to talk about that in a few minutes. All right, so when you start exploring Google Sites to create your own website, it's really a good idea to keep a few things in mind. So your website, this gets into a content conversation a little bit. So 6 important characteristics with a website. It needs to be goal-oriented. So what does that mean? Please have a call to action. Sign up here. Watch this video. Click this link and buy this. Connect with me on LinkedIn, something like that. It needs to be organized and easy to search. So the template you choose will be very helpful. Fill it in with images, content, organize your menus really well. So it's very simple. Don't get tricky with your navigation. Just be very simple and plain. The about, the mission, where to buy, who am I? I mean, don't get really busy with the different listings. I mean, just make it plain and make it simple. And is your website useful, right? Does it do useful things for people? For example, if you have a bakery, is there a tool on there that allows someone to submit an order? One of the ways you can think about that, if you don't want to get into third party, licensing with tools to like for heavy commerce, with some of these, with the Google sites, you can integrate a Google form in your site, and it embeds seamlessly. Someone earlier mentioned how everything just sort of connects. You can actually embed a Google Sheet. You can embed a Google form. You can embed a Google Doc to a Google site really easily, very easily. And here's your answer. Last but not least, is it findable by search engines? Can search engines find your website? So that's a good question that really didn't actually get answered by my notes, which I wonder why it didn't really get answered. I know that one thing that search engines like to see is they like to see that information is current and up to date, and it isn't old, and there's always something fresh on their website. That's one thing I do know that I want you to keep in mind as you have a website. If you haven't updated your website recently, Google does punish you to have stale information because they want information to be relevant and up to date for the user experience. So for more information about how to put together a really good website, I want you to go to g.co/grow-on-air. I'm going to put that in the chat. And there's all different kinds of interesting little 5-minute episodes. There's actually a really good one you should look up. I'm going to type it in. It's called Designing an Engaging Website for Your Business. You can get a little bit deeper into, making a website really amazing and really shine. So creating a website on Google Sites takes, it says 3 minutes, but my kid and I, we did his site in 2 minutes. It was just so easy. We had his pictures ready. He didn't want to write a lot of copy. He just wanted to have a link to an email and it was ready to go. So if you have your Gmail account open, you're automatically signed into your Google account. You can open Google Sites by going to sites.google.com. This brings you to the site's homepage. At the top of the page, it says start a new site. It's so easy. It's bold. It's a big words. And you'll see a number of template options. Select one by clicking on it. And you can start populating with images. You can use, if you have 5 or 6 different Gmail accounts like I do, it's really that easy. And then when you're ready, if you like it, what you've done, you just hit publish. You can share your site and there it goes. It's ready and it's live. It's live right there. Whether you do a domain connection or not, it's live. So I want to do one more topic. It's called email. So this gets a little bit confusing. So there's a thing where you can have an email that is sales@stagesbakery.com, or, you can have something that says, stasia6158@gmail.com, right? Which is not what you would call a professional or business email account, right? So, Miss Jackson, do you have an email that connects to Far South? Can you put it in the chat? Because that's a professional real name. Okay. So if you register a domain name like stasiasbakery.com or stasiasbakery.net with Google Domains, you automatically have the option to create 100 email aliases. That is not, an alias is not an email. It's an alias. And so what that means is they're not separate email accounts. They exist just to forward. I know, Valencia, it's very confusing. It's very, very confusing. So aliases basically are not separate email accounts. They just forward to another email address. So it looks like on the outside, it'll look like a real email address, but it's not really an email address. So let me just try to clarify, because I really hate this part of the workshop, I'll be honest, because it's very confusing, and I'm not even 100% sure it's really necessary to talk about this, but it kind of is, I guess. So let's say you register the domain name stasiasbakery.net, but your primary address is Stasia GA615 at example.com or stasiagal615 at gmail.com, right? With Google domains, you can create up to 100 aliases, which are, it could say Stasia's at stasiasbakery.net. It could say sales at stasiasbakery.net. It could say contact at stasiasbakery.net. And you have 97 more options to do that, okay? But when someone sends an email to all these different email addresses, it's only going to go to stasiagal615 at gmail.com. It's not going to go to separate email addresses. So Valencia, do you have an email address at work? Yeah, okay, exactly. So hello at farsouthcdc.org, whatever that says, that actually goes to your marketing department because that's a real email address. That's a real email address because it's connected to a domain. So it's a little confusing. It's sort of, annoying how that works. But some people, to be honest, like they can't afford a domain right now. And they can't afford a real domain, which means they can't have 100 real email addresses. So they have to have a forwarding email. And that's fine too. It works in the beginning. The main thing is that if you can't afford to have a real email address, on the outside, having a forwarding address, no one will really know except you. It only gets confusing when you have like several different email accounts, right? Several different aliases, for lack of a better way of describing it. So anyway, this is one option to add polish to your email communications. If you really, really need a full email address and you want more than one email address, you'll have to, get a Google Workspace account, which allows you to have as many email addresses as you want. You just have to pay extra for each email address you have. So I have 5 dedicated email addresses for the 5 people that do work for me. And those email addresses are 5 separate ones. And I have a separate charge for each one because they get the email in their email box. It doesn't go to one email where everybody's email goes. And I know that I did a really terrible job explaining that because it is confusing, but I understand it in my head. There's just not really good words to put together. So I'm actually going to move on because you can email from an alias. Yes, you can. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can email from an alias. But just keep in mind, the alias is not real. It's really emailing. It's emailing from the email that the alias is covering from. Yeah. So I don't know if that made any sense. Did that make sense, SW? I mean, I don't know. Why do you want to have an alias or do you want a real email? Or are you trying to save money? Because, a lot of times with aliases, they're really only there to save money. That's what they're for. They're cheap. But the problem is if you have 20 aliases and you've got emails coming in from all 20 and they end up in one email box, how do you tell them apart? You can't. You cannot tell them apart. If you have sales, marketing, branding, accounting, business all going to one email, they'll all go into a pool and you'll have to read every single email to see which is which because they will not be addressed. They will not be addressed to marketing. They will not be addressed to sales. They will be addressed to the one. And it's just like a pool of crazy. Anyway, okay, I'm going to move on from this. So setting up an email forwarding with Google Domains is very straightforward. You just sign into your Google Domains, you click on My Domains, you click Manage, you click Email. You'll see a dialog box that says Email Forwarding. In that box, you're going to click Add Email Alias, and you want to add the email alias that you want to create and the primary email address that you want it to connect to. Click Add, and with that, you have an email alias address. So if you created the alias sales@stasiasbakery.net, all emails sent to that address will automatically be forwarded to the recipient email account. In that case, it would be, stasia@gmail.com. Okay, so I'm going to move on because I really don't like the alias conversation because I don't use aliases. I just don't because it doesn't work for my business. I have too many things going on. I can't process 1,000 different emails going into one place. It doesn't work for me. I need them all to be separated in their own separate email boxes. All right, so Google Domains includes email forwarding, but forwarding is not the same as having an email account as I just mentioned. if you want a professional business email, you'll have to sign up for Google Workspace directly from your Google Domains account. It's very easy. I'm sure if you're in Google Domains right now, you'll see right now the Google Workspace option, which costs extra. Okay. And it's really not that much extra, but it is extra. So Workspace though includes all the all the collaboration tools like calendar, docs, slides, and more. And basically within Workspace with your own email address, you have your own Google Drive associated with your email. You can't have your own Google Drive associated with an alias, okay? All right, you can, if you want, you can try Google Workspace for free for 14 days. Just go to g.co/workspace and you can try it out. It's very addictive. You try it out, you're never going to want to go back. So just be careful when you try things. You might be like, wow, this has made my life so much easier. Then you're just like, what am I going to do? Then you're suddenly realizing, I guess I'm just going to have to buy this thing, which adds one more thing to your monthly budget. All right, that's a lot of information. I'm going to recap and go over the highlights, and I want to share some resources. So, all right, today we talked about what a domain is and why it's important for any business of any type to register for these things. A domain is basically the name of a website. It's the part we see after the www, if you even see that. Some websites don't even have the www anymore. It's in a professional email address. It's what comes after the @ symbol. That is the domain after the @ symbol. So whether you set up a website right away or set it up later, when you register it, you can just park the domain you've bought and nobody can have it except you, as long as you keep paying it on time on a regular basis. Whenever they ask you it's time to renew, you go ahead and renew it. With Google Domains, you can just set up a button that automatically renews, and it's just going to renew on the money, and you'll get emails letting you know your renewal is coming up soon. It's really awesome. When you choose a domain name, keep it simple. Once you have a name, register it with an official registrar. I mentioned to you Google Domains is an official registrar. GoDaddy is an official registrar. GoDaddy does charge extra for privacy, a lot extra. It's really unfair. I think it's extortion, frankly. Okay, the domain can be useful for a website so people can find your business. Google Sites doesn't require any coding experience whatsoever. It's a great way to just try something out. A professional email address is always better than an alias. It keeps things organized, but if you can't afford to have a professional email address, at least get one alias, and that'll be that, right? All right, so let's look at a couple of bonus tools with Google Domains. You can get reports, which is really awesome. This is the Google Search Console that I was telling you about earlier. This tells you how many people looked at your site, who clicked on which search terms are driving the most traffic to your site, things like that. You can get a lot of valuable insights from Google, from the Search Console. Just navigate to the My Domains on your Google Domains account, select your domain, select reports, get reports, and the Google Search Console will generate a beautiful, beautiful report. Usually takes up to about 24 hours, maybe less. It just really depends on what's going on. But this really helps you understand how Google sees your site and where improvements can be made, and it's, again, powered by AI. Make sure you use all these tools. Analytics, again, once you have a Google Sites, you can connect that to Google Analytics. And this actually answers the earlier question, because you can connect analytics to the site, and that way you can find out how people are finding your site, which does mean that there's some kind of SEO, or there's some kind of automation built into the back end. There's some kind of SEO happening on your Google site. So anyway, but Google Analytics is really amazing because it helps you get a better understanding of how people are actually using your website, which is really wonderful. So I love it. It's free. It doesn't cost any money. g.co/analytics. Just make a connection, and it happens pretty seamlessly. Actually, it goes really fast. It's like what the person said earlier about the collaboration. It's just like everything just falls in like dominoes. And I mentioned to you, I should probably just make one more mention. I don't know if there's any businesses on the line. I know, Catherine, Far South is eligible for this $100,000 worth of workforce training. You know that, right? Because did you do that for Far South? Did you sign up for the Google Career Certificate Program? Because you can actually sign into this, and people can earn a career certificate through you. I'm not sure if you've done that, but you should definitely.
Nice. We're
Pardon
gonna have to
me?
talk about that. I did not. We're gonna have to talk about that.
Yeah, I'm
Uh,
putting in the chat. Any
yeah.
business can participate and basically offer scholarships for people to get training for no cost. Because Coursera, which is where the certificates are offered through, it does cost money. But if you get approved as a business, and I think you're a Google partner now, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
so I think you should be eligible to get this, which means you'll be able to issue career certificates through Far South. But people have to take the classes, right? They gotta
Right.
take the class to get the
Yeah.
certificate. But it's pretty cool. I'm gonna just
Yeah, we need to
let's
talk
see
about
here. I'm
that.
gonna just copy
Definitely.
this in here so that you can keep it for the notes. But it's only for US based businesses, of course. It's for employees, but also, there are ways to help other people get these career certificates that don't have money, right? That can't afford $35. I mean, $35 is a lot of money. Um, and I don't think my coupon is available anymore, but you can try it. I think this expired December 31st, 2022. But try it. Let me know if this still works. I don't think it still works, but this was a 24% off domain. If you decide to try it, get a domain and you type this code in, I would love to know if it works. I don't. I think it's already expired. I hate to share it, but you know what? Maybe they extended it. So it would be cool to find out if they did that. And that concludes this workshop. What would you like me to put in the chat again, Meryl?
The